Yay! So here I have on my desk all of these little triangles that I made just by doing crumb piecing. Remember I showed you on another video how I sewed strips together? Then I just used my ruler and cut out random sized triangles, and the only thing that I thought I would like to do would be to make a 6.5-inch square when I was done. So when I finish with this triangle, I got to build it up with other strips so that by the time I'm done, it'll be 6.5 inches. So the first thing is just to make some triangles out of all of my scrappy bits. And then I pick a piece of solid color or pattern in the color way that I'm looking at. And I'm just going to sew a strip of color on two sides of this triangle. Keep the seam allowances going in the same direction, so when you press it, it's easier to deal with. So instead of just stopping right there at the top of that triangle, I stitch a little bit farther, take the next one, put it here, and you'll see the reason why I left some space in there. So all four of those now are sewed onto this strip of fabric. I have another strip for the other side. So I'm just going to press it and trim this a bit. So when I go to press this, I want to have a 6.5-inch triangle when I'm done. So the reason I left the space in between is so when I trim this off of here, I'm going to have enough room for what I want to do. So the first thing I would do is just set this roughly at the bottom of this triangle and cut that there. Then I would turn this one sort of on a sideways angle, and up the side of this one, I'm going to trim that piece off. And then I'm just going to roughly trim that one off there. So there I have the start, and when I put my next piece on this side, it is bigger than it needs to be, which is good because I will want to trim some of that off as well. So let me just finish these. The only one that really matters is this side, because you definitely want to use a straight edge on this side when you sew that onto there. So you need to have straight edge on one side. So now I'll sew this side onto the other strip. And the size of the strip doesn't really matter. It can be uneven. It can be anything, whatever you have. And this time I know that this is longer than it needs to be. So I'm not too worried about going right up to the very top, but I do want to come here and make sure I have enough at the side at the bottom so that when I trim this into a 6.5 inch square, I have enough at both sides at the bottom and both sides at the top. So when you see this part sticking out here, we're going to have to do something about that later, but let me do this first. So there are those 4 sewn on there. Set these aside so I don't get them in the way. So the only real thing I want here is to make sure that I have enough down at this end to separate them. So I want a bottom on it. I know the tops are bigger than they need to be. Try this way. And they're all different sizes. That's great. So I need to add fabric in here and along the side. So what I'm going to do is take another color, something that I have enough of to put up along both sides. So here's a piece of fabric that's had multiple cuts out of it, some other thing. So hopefully there's enough to do the 4 corners. So just to be a little more careful, I think what I'm going to do I know this is, if I have a bit of extra at the bottom, I know I can take that off. I could take some of that and that off. Let's see, do I want it to be a little bit more like that? Maybe, that would be nicer. So if I just trim a bit of that off there, that's a little bit nicer shape. Make a triangle. If they don't have to be even width here, they can be, they don't have to be. You can make it bigger at the top, narrower at the bottom, whatever you want, but I can trim some of that off or I can leave it just the way it is. But I think I'm going to trim a bit off. Not really measuring, just trimming a bit. And that gives me some space for both sides to add some of this color. Keep that over there for now. But I know that it doesn't have to go across the top. So as long as I put something in there and something in there, I should be fine. So looking at this, you want to make something that's kind of the same. So that should work, that piece, no, it's a right angle. That's not too far off of straight of grain. So if I were just to sew a piece in here, like that, it would work just fine. Trim that there and there. And turn it this way. take that little thing off there. Bigger piece at the top. That's a nice thing about that. So that piece can go there. And I know I have a straight edge on the orange, so if I just set that on top, it's at the bottom, it's at the top, I can sew that in. Nice. So I know I have enough here. I just need a piece to go in there now. Probably that piece right there will work. Put that in there. So that. So there wasn't much waste there. I just cut that little bit off so that it's not so big underneath. Notice I always press the light color. Whoops. I usually press the light color to the inside. But here's my block. I could trim it now. I can't go any higher than that. Oh, there you go. I can go over to here, over to here. That part could have been a little bit longer, but we'll see. Trim it like that. Everything is inside the block, so there's my block. Could use that for something else. And there is my block. Just make 3 more of those out of these right here, and I can sew them together. That's a keeper. That's not. So these things I don't keep. They're too small. But these things that I cut off, I can keep those and sew them into another crumb later. So I'll just finish these and I'll show you what I do with them. So sometimes when I'm doing this kind of improvised piecing, I put my ruler on and the corner is missing. So with this one, I just took one of the leftover pieces that I trimmed off, made sure there was a straight line here. And I put the piece on, and now when I put my ruler on there, it's big enough here to cut my 6.5 inch square. So I'll trim that in a minute. But here's the last one. And I have this much fabric left over, so I want to make sure that when I sew it together, I'm not going to have little pieces like that sticking on the edge. It's all right if I do, but I don't really want to. So with this piece, I just have to be a bit more careful. That's what I've got, and that's what I need. So if I set this on here, just so I have underneath enough seam allowance. And if I sew that on there, I know I have a piece that's going to be big enough here, here, and here to go all the way around and give me a little bit of extra. So quite often I would just mark that where the top's going to go and where the bottom is going to go. And then I can just turn this one over, and as long as I'm in that frame there, and I sew that along here, this will press over into that space, and I know I'm going to have enough here. Then hopefully this piece is going to give me enough to go on that side. Let's see. That piece is on. Now just take my little ruler and make sure that when I put this on, it's going to be big enough to cover the corners, the corner there. So I'm going to do a cut right up there. Then with this piece here, I know I can trim this away. It's in the way. And I also want to trim this up here because I need a straight line to sew this on. Yahoo! Wowee! That is crazy lucky. So now I'm just going to turn that upside down. I know I have a little bit leeway, so I can turn that upside down so that maybe not, maybe not. I forgot there's an angle there. So let's see. Oh, look at that. Pretty close, but I can move that up. And there I have a square. Yada da 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 da. Yada da 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 da. Cross there, cross there. Look at that. Love it. Perfect. Square two. But here's what you can just put them in rows. You could put them together like that. They don't always match, that's not a problem. They can be bigger. Or you could put them together to make a 12.5-inch block. Or you could have one row that goes up like that. The next row you could have going like that, so that you've got rows and rows. And when you get a whole bunch of different colors and patterns all together and different solids around the outside, looks really nice. So there's lots of options when you do improvised piecing, and you use all those little bits and pieces of blocks that you really don't have any use for. What are you going to do with all those things anyway? So put them together, do something with them, make some fun baby quilts or fun lap quilts for some senior at a senior's home. I mean, you've got the scraps and it only takes a little bit of time and it's a bit of fun. It's a great thing to do. Somebody would be happy with that. So what I think I'm going to do with mine though, I'm going to put mine like that. Mine like that. And when I get a whole bunch of them made, they can look sort of like that. And I might sew them together in a quilt, just as they are, to make a lap quilt for a seniors residence down the street, or make a baby quilt. This one is sort of pastel-y, it's kind of pretty. Or I could do quilt as you go and put I can put sashing rows in between these and do a quilt as you go. And that would be easy and fast to do as well. So there's lots of things that you can do with improvised blocks. And really, this one has got a seam here, an extra seam here. This one is, they're all pieced together. And this one has a seam here and a seam here. And there's a different color in this block. I ran out of this dark blue, so I've added something other than the color that it was originally intended to be. So there's lots of things you can do with these blocks. And it's just improvised piecing, and it's a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you try some of these techniques out. Thank you for watching.